A sense of uneasy calm hangs over Doha as the region watches Gaza with growing anxiety. In the political heart of Qatar, where negotiations have quietly shaped some of the most consequential Middle Eastern diplomatic outcomes in recent years, the message delivered by Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani is unusually direct. Speaking before reporters and policy officials, the Qatari leader makes clear that what the world is calling a ceasefire is, in his government's view, anything but. We are now at a critical moment. We have not reached that point yet. What we have done recently is merely a truce. We cannot consider that there is a ceasefire yet. A ceasefire is only complete with a full Israeli withdrawal and the return of stability to Gaza, enabling people to enter and leave, which has not yet happened. As he puts it, we are now at a critical moment. We have not reached that point yet. What we have done recently is merely a truce. We cannot consider that there is a ceasefire yet. A ceasefire is only complete with a full Israeli withdrawal and the return of stability to Gaza, enabling people to enter and leave, which has not yet happened. His words echo across a region exhausted by cycles of conflict and deeply skeptical of temporary pauses that fail to change the underlying reality on the ground. For months, Qatar has served as one of the primary intermediaries between Hamas, Israel, the United States, and regional actors attempting to prevent Gaza from spiraling further into humanitarian collapse. But Doha's position today is noticeably sharper. It is not merely calling for the resumption of negotiations or urging restraint. It is defining the parameters of what it believes a genuine end to violence must look like. The distinction between a truce and a ceasefire is central to the Qatari argument. A truce, as officials explain behind the scenes, is temporary by design, fragile, easily reversible, and often used as a political tool rather than a strategic commitment. A ceasefire, by contrast, implies a cessation of hostilities built on some measure of mutual understanding, even if not trust. In Gaza's case, Sheikh Mohammed makes it clear that such a standard cannot be met while Israeli forces remain deployed inside the Strip, while families cannot move freely, and while stability remains elusive across the enclave. This framing places Qatar in a position that is both influential and risky. The country has long argued that durable solutions in Gaza require more than military calculations. They require political architecture, humanitarian access, and regional guarantees. But standing at the center of this negotiation also means absorbing pressure from all sides. Washington views Qatar as essential but wants progress to unfold within the parameters of US diplomatic strategy. Israel treats Doha with suspicion, often accusing it of providing political space to Hamas. The Palestinian factions, divided and under extraordinary strain, look to Qatar for assistance but cannot agree internally on a shared endgame. And the broader region, from Egypt to Jordan to the Gulf states, is watching closely to see whether Qatar's approach will force new momentum or deepen existing stalemates. Sheikh Mohammed's remarks suggest he is acutely aware of this landscape. When he describes the current moment as critical, he is signaling that the temporary pause in fighting has not resolved any of the structural issues driving the conflict. Food and medical shortages remain severe. Gaza's internal displacement crisis is worsening, with families still searching for safety in an environment that offers almost none. The political vacuum has not been filled, and international agencies warn that the Strip is at risk of another catastrophic breakdown if the pause collapses. The Qatari position is also shaped by concerns about what comes next. Without a full Israeli withdrawal, officials in Doha fear that the temporary halt in fighting will serve as little more than a prelude to a renewed offensive, one that could be even deadlier and harder to contain. They also warn that Gaza cannot recover as long as people are unable to move in and out freely. The enclave's economy has been shattered. Its hospitals, schools, and basic infrastructure cannot function without sustained access to the outside world. For Qatar, the reopening of Gaza's gateways is not a symbolic benchmark, but a tangible requirement for any meaningful post-conflict reconstruction. Behind these public statements, diplomacy continues at a furious pace. Envoys shuttle between Doha, Cairo, Washington and European capitals, seeking a framework that can satisfy Israel's security demands, Hamas's political conditions and the international community's insistence on humanitarian protections. While progress is made in fragments, none of the core disagreements have been resolved. Israel refuses to commit to a timeline for withdrawal, arguing that Hamas remains militarily capable and politically entrenched. Hamas, weakened but far from defeated, insists that any agreement must guarantee long-term cessation of hostilities and reconstruction. The United States is attempting to bridge the gap, but domestic politics and regional sensitivities complicate its leverage. Qatar's challenge is to navigate these contradictions while preserving its credibility with all sides. The country's leaders know that any political settlement requires concessions that none of the actors are currently willing to make, yet they also believe that allowing the situation to drift will guarantee further escalation. Sheikh Mohammed's words reflect this urgency, a reminder that diplomatic windows do not remain open indefinitely and that the cost of missed opportunities in Gaza is measured not only in geopolitical loss, but in human life. Part of what makes Qatar's intervention notable is the shift it represents from cautious diplomacy to vocal advocacy. For years, Qatari officials preferred to operate quietly, facilitating back-channel talks without drawing public attention. This strategy allowed Doha to maintain connections with diverse actors, from Washington to Hamas, that rarely communicate directly. But the worsening condition of Gaza and the lack of concrete progress following months of negotiation has compelled a more public posture. The Prime Minister's comments are not only a diagnostic assessment, but an implicit warning that without a withdrawal, the international community may find itself returning to the same cycle of violence it has spent months trying to halt. The reaction in diplomatic circles has been mixed but attentive. Some European officials privately agree with the Qatari stance, arguing that long-term peace is unattainable without addressing root causes. Others view the call for withdrawal as impractical at this stage, given Israel's security calculations and the unresolved question of who would govern Gaza afterward. Within Israel, the remarks have been criticized by government supporters but taken seriously by those who recognize that Qatar remains an indispensable mediator. Palestinian groups, for their part, have welcomed the clarity but expressed doubts about whether the international system has the political will to enforce such terms. As the region processes the Qatari message, another dynamic is emerging: the widening gap between military realities and humanitarian needs. Aid organizations report that even during the truce, entry of essential supplies has lagged behind what is required. The narrow corridors opened for assistance have not been enough to stabilize conditions. Medical workers warn of collapsing hospital systems. Families continue to rely on improvised shelters, fragile water access, and limited food distribution. These human stories, Qatar argues, illustrate why withdrawal and stability cannot be delayed. They are not political luxuries, but immediate necessities. The Prime Minister's remarks also reflect Qatar's strategic calculus at a regional level. In an environment shaped by shifting alliances, great power competition, and unpredictable escalations, Doha is positioning itself as a stabilizing actor, but that role comes with expectations. The Gulf state has invested heavily in humanitarian operations, regional diplomacy, and political mediation. It has built relations with global powers while maintaining channels to actors considered untouchable by others. This gives Qatar influence but also responsibility. Failure to advance a sustainable outcome in Gaza would be seen as both a diplomatic setback and a humanitarian failure. There is also the domestic dimension. For Qatar, the Palestinian issue resonates deeply with public sentiment, nationalist identity, and regional legitimacy. Standing firm on Gaza is not only a foreign policy choice, but a national expectation. The government's call for full withdrawal aligns with public opinion and reinforces Qatar's self-image as a principled actor in Arab diplomacy, not merely a transactional broker. As the speech circulates across global news outlets, analysts note that Qatar's framing may influence upcoming negotiations. By clearly defining what it considers an acceptable endpoint, Doha is essentially pushing the international community to sharpen its own definitions. If the world continues to label temporary pauses as ceasefires, the risk is that diplomatic urgency will fade while the underlying crisis remains unresolved. Qatar is attempting to prevent that complacency, reminding policymakers that language shapes expectations and expectations shape outcomes. Whether this intervention changes the course of negotiations remains uncertain, but it does mark a moment of clarity in a conflict often clouded by ambiguity. The Qatari Prime Minister has drawn a clear line. The situation in Gaza cannot be considered de-escalated until Israeli forces withdraw and normal life becomes possible for civilians. Anything short of that, in Doha's view, is a temporary illusion of calm. For now, the region watches and waits. The truce holds, but only barely. Diplomats continue their shuttle negotiations, hoping to convert fragile pauses into something more durable. Families in Gaza cling to the faint hope that stability will return, even as they brace for uncertainty. And Qatar, stepping more firmly into the role of outspoken mediator, seeks to turn a moment of hesitation into an opportunity for long-term peace. In the midst of this fragile balance, Sheikh Mohammed's voice carries a message that is simple in its phrasing but profound in its implications. Peace is not a pause, and stability is not a promise. Without structural change, without withdrawal, access, and genuine security for Gaza's residents, the world may once again mistake temporary quiet for lasting progress. For Doha, that outcome is unacceptable. Its leaders believe the region is at a turning point and that the choices made now will shape not only Gaza's future, but the trajectory of Middle Eastern diplomacy for years to come. The question is whether the world is prepared to act before the window closes and whether the warnings issued in Doha today will be heard before the fragile truce collapses under the weight of unmet expectations.